European Union updated its strategy compass to react to the future crisis and become more decisive and fast.
The United States prepares to update its own defense strategy, but still keeps its focus on China instead of Russia.
Russia's defense minister has been missing from the public eyes for 12 days. What is happening to him?
Fox News poll knows American public opinions on the Russian-Ukraine war.
The U.S. Senate held its third-day hearing on Ketanji Brown Jackson for Supreme Court Justice. Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang.
All right, so today, I think most of the U.S. news just have this headline on this Senate hearing. Right, that will be our focus too.
Right.
And
what's the takeaways?
Yeah, hopefully we can all come away wiser and more knowledgeable. Okay, and I'm sure that will be so. But before that, let's zoom in on the other news, major news of today. First, the first piece of news is that happened on Monday. Okay, but it's still relevant. I want to bring this to your attention. The defense ministers of the European Union adopted a long-awaited strategic compass document on Monday, and basically it's a plan to beef up the European Union's defenses in the wake of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine.
Officials have hastened to rewrite the document since the Ukraine war began in late February. The main content of the compass includes:
well, the first one, enable more robust and rapid and decisive action by, hear me out, short-circuiting the unanimous consent principle during crisis. So basically for European Union, everything they do, they got this 27-member nation, they all have to vote yes to do something. So when some crisis happen, you really don't have that time to have this 27 guys, 27 nations to sit down and come to a consensus. So they want to short-circuit that. Quick decision. Okay.
Did they say exactly how to do that?
They didn't say so, but what they say is that they're going to form like a mini coalition of the willing, consisting of the subsets of the member that would deploy to hotspot on behalf of the bloc and under the EU Council oversight. So basically, these 5 nations, they can come together and say, let's do it. Okay? They got 5 nods, they can send the army out. So that's pretty much the idea. Making the decision circle can be smaller.
Okay, so another thing they decided is to form mini coalitions of the willing, consisting of subsets of members that would deploy
to hotspot.
What I just talked about. Talked about. So another thing is to create a 5,000 strong EU rapid deployment capability, allowing the swift deployment of a modular force in a non-permissive environment by 2025.
Yeah, so this is the initiative of the European Union. Remember, this is besides the NATO. Okay, NATO have its own responsive force and its own decision-making process. This is European Union. Okay, with this defense minister deciding on what they would do at a time of the crisis. The Biden administration, however, is seeking a balance. What it sees as a pivotal moment for Europe with the desire to keep the U.S. focused on actually Asia.
So according to a senior Pentagon official, he said, I think there is a room to enhance our posture alongside our allies in Europe without it being this huge sucking sound that prevents us from being able to focus on China. So since 2018, the Pentagon's strategy has defined China and Russia as primary concerns and North Korea, Iran, and violent extremism as secondary threats.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Okay, the following report is by Wall Street Journal on the Pentagon. Basically, the Wall Street Journal reported that in the building of the Pentagon, there's this change. Okay, previously there's this 2+3 approach, 2 chief adversaries with 3 secondary ones. The 2 chief adversaries were China and Russia, okay? And the 3 secondary ones are North Korea, Iran, and extreme, how to say,
Violent.
radical extremist. Yeah, those are the three. Now that formula has changed. It is supplanted by a 1+4 strategy, which put China first and place Russia among the lesser threats. Russia become one of the four, right? Because through this Russia-Ukraine war, Russia pretty much is heavily sanctioned. It will be downgraded to the second or third rate of kind of a nation, so it won't pose as much a threat to the U.S. So, thus, the revision of the U.S. defense strategy. Do you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, seems like the PRC under communism has a upgrade. Okay, so a new U.S. Defense strategy due to release earlier this year was held up due to the Ukraine crisis. However, they didn't do a wholesale rewrite of the document. So the strategy will still assign Russia as secondary priority behind China. So the invasion of Ukraine has sparked concerns among top policy, diplomatic, and military officials about losing sight of the strategic threat from China, however.
Yeah, the U.S. has already rushed more than 15,000 troops in the last 1 month to Europe amid the crisis in Ukraine, and they're raising the U.S. force level in Europe to more than 100,000 personnel for the first time in decades. While the Eastern NATO members are eager for additional U.S. commitment to the region, and the Latvian defense minister said this: "We need more defenses, rocket artillery, and this is what we need. And of course, we would like to have American soldiers here, permanently based."
But until the immediate crisis is over, Pentagon officials are loath to make those kind of long-term commitments. That was said by a U.S. military official familiar with the planning. And he said that the Russians are not 10 feet tall. So while NATO has moved to make, he said, we don't want to overshoot the mark.
Yeah, don't overdo it. So to the Pentagon, China is still the main target. So another Pentagon senior official said, China remains, in our assessment, the only country that can systematically challenge the United States for now and for the rest of this century. That means diplomatically, technologically, economically, militarily, and geopolitically.
And
All right.
So, there seems to be strong support from both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democratic parties in the Congress, to significantly boost the military spending from the current $740 billion to over $800 billion.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the development in the Pentagon and also in our Congress. Okay, in terms of what's happening in Ukraine to the war in the last 2 days, to be honest, not much change. Okay, Russian military seems to have been stalled virtually on all fronts. And then in the meantime, a piece of interesting news. Okay, the head of Russia's Ministry of Defense, and his name is Sergei Shoigu. Maybe we can see his photo. Sergei Shoigu has not been seen in the public for 12 days and is possibly missing, according to the report. And the message is circulated on the Telegram on Wednesday.
There are rumors that Shoigu is in poor health and is experiencing heart problems, while other messages are swirling online suggesting he might have been fired from the ministry and is on house arrest. That's according to Russian journalists. Neither can be independently confirmed as of now.
Yeah, we don't know what happened, but as a person from China or from like a totalitarian regime, when you have a war, you got your defense minister missing from the public eyes. That's never coincidental. Something's happening there. So we'll be following that. Okay, the next is a quick poll. I thought we want to know this. Let's assume the poll is accurate, which, well, could be questionable, but let's just take this as a grain of salt. According to the recent, just released Fox News poll, American voters are closely following the news about Russia's invasion of the Ukraine and want to help. Specifically, what does that mean?
Okay, so by our 63 versus 32% margin, voters think the United States should do more for Ukrainians in their fight against Russia.
Well, fully 82% are concerned about the invasion, and 76% approve of how Ukrainian President Zelensky is responding to it.
The new Fox News national survey also finds a growing portion saying that Russia-Ukraine conflict matters to life in the United States, and 85% felt that way, up from 76% from last month.
Yeah, and the Russia-Ukrainian war is an issue that the Democrats and the Republicans largely agree upon, okay? And 90% of the Democrats and 85% of the Republicans think that what happened in Ukraine makes a difference here at home. About 8 in 10 Democrats and Republicans alike, okay, both 80%, approve of Zelensky, and 2/3 in each party wants to do more for Ukraine.
So currently, 45% of the voters approve of Biden's overall job performance, while 54% disapprove. Last month, it was 43 versus 56, so up a little bit. That 2-point increase in approval comes from doubling among Republicans to 15%, which is up from 8% approval in February, and 82% of Democrats and 33% of independents approve.
Does that feel right?
Yeah, let us know
Yeah,
how
let
you
us
think.
know how you think. In the number that we read to you, to be honest, after 2020 is, I'm sorry, sometimes it's hard to believe in those polls. And, media polls, and they all have, a lot of explanation to do. But anyway, that's just, since we don't have replacement, we just take this as a grain of salt. But let us know how you feel about that. Would that reflect that the common sense that you have? About the people around you. Okay, that's that. Now let's move on to today's Senate hearing on the Supreme Court Justice candidate. Okay, and Jackson, and is the lady's name, and she was actually a district court only, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
She was a district court. Okay, so about 9 months ago, she was promoted to be a appeal court judge. And now she's being nominated by President Biden to be the Supreme Court Justice. That's really fast move, right? So what do we know about today's hearing, Kathy?
Yeah, so from yesterday to today, so a lot of people probably noticed a couple of areas that Jackson's record has been questioned a lot by the senators, especially from the GOP side. One issue is her record of sentencing the child pornography cases. Okay. The other area is her view on the critical race theory. So I think these two parts are really raised a lot of questions from the GOP senators, and her, what she did before, what she said before, were just grilled by senators, especially like, for example, Senators Josh Hawley, Senator Ted Cruz, and Tom Cotton. So yeah, just give you some, those are the hours-long hearings, right? I don't know if anyone would listen to all of it. I wasn't able to listen to everything, but a good part of it. So just give example, Senator Josh Hawley really questioned Judge Jackson on her record of sentencing quite a few child pornography cases. And he especially pointed out the 7 of them, the sentencing by the judge departed from both federal guidelines and the prosecutor's recommendation. So this is how it seems to work, okay? That's what I learned from their conversation. So the judge, when she was sentencing, deciding how to sentence the defendant, he or she would also consider the federal the Congress guidelines on those sentencing. Also, he or she will consider the prosecutor's recommendation of the sentencing. So both are from the government. So then he or she will make, but still, have their own decision on how to sentence the defendant. So Senator Josh Hawley pointed these 7 cases, all of them, Jackson just disregarded. However long the Congress suggests to, even sometimes it's mandate, but she, just severe, largely lessen the sentencing. Also, her sentencing is much less than what the prosecutors asked for. And one of the cases is U.S. versus Hawkins. That's a case in 2013. That's about an 18-year-old high school graduator. His name is Wesley Hawkins. So this person, this young man, uploaded 5 videos on YouTube. Those are all child pornography. And also uploaded 36 photos on iCloud account. Then the law enforcement, after getting the search warrant, found the 17 videos and the 16 images of child pornography on his laptop. All were very graphic, and Senator Hawley pointed out some of them involving very young children, in those type of a sexual act. From the 17 videos, he pointed out there were a 12-year-old, even 8-year-old, and an 11-year-old, even scenes raped by adult, and another 2 of the 11-year-old and another 12-year-old. So that's just among the 17 videos, and the video length, ranging from several minutes to around 30 minutes. And the total, there are about 600 images that this Hawkins had. So what's the sentencing? The Congress, under the Congress guideline, Congress actually wrote a guideline for this case. It suggested 97 to 121 months, so up to 10 years, okay, for the judge to choose. And the federal prosecutor in D.C. asked for how many years? 2 years for the sentencing. So eventually, how long did Judge Jackson sentence Hawkins? 3 months. Okay, so
1/7 of it.
Yeah, so Senator Hawley asked her why, right? Why? So actually, according to the record, Judge Jackson made a number of arguments at that time, tried to justify why only 3 months. So Senator Hawley quoted her and then see how Jackson responded at the hearing.
And you say, and I quote, "I don't feel that it's appropriate to increase the penalty on the basis of the number of images or prepubescent victims, meaning little kids, as the guidelines require, because these circumstances exist in many cases, if not most, and don't signal an especially heinous or egregious child pornography offense," end quote. I just want to ask you about that because I just have to tell you I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it. We're talking about 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds. He's got images of these, the government said added up to over 600 images, gobs of video footage of these children, but you say this does not signal a heinous or egregious child pornography offense. Help me understand that. What word would you use if it's not heinous or egregious? How would you describe it?
Thank you, Senator, for letting me address the concern that you've put forward based on the record that you've reviewed. As a judge who is a mom and has been tasked with the responsibility of actually reviewing the evidence,
Okay, so basically, can you understand how she's answering? Senator Hawley was asking her, if you, because her explanation is that you cannot, depend on how many graphics or the videos or images that this defendant has to decide if this his crime is heinous or egregious. Then he asked her, then how do you describe it? So she actually, paused for a long time and answered with this, starting with this answer. Basically, and at the end of her long sentence, she said, yes, it is heinous and egregious. But then he went on to explained that my point was that the Congress guideline was not doing the work to differentiate the defendants, because at that time Congress had an argument about whether sometimes the sentencing are too severe, right? So. And then she said it's not about her sentencing was not about how many months the defendant will spend in prison. And she said also there are other punishments such as forbidding this defendant using computer, sometimes for life, and forbidden him to go near children. But she was talking about like in a general term. She didn't address how exactly, besides the 3 months of sentencing, this Hawkins, what are the other punishment he is receiving. So basically, she didn't really answer the question from how I listened to it. Then Senator Hawley read from the court record about how Judge Jackson explained her reasons for the 3-month sentencing. And let's see how she responded.
You said to this defendant, for whom you sentenced to only 3 months in prison, that your collection, I'm quoting you, your collection at the time that you were caught was not actually as large as it seems. The government felt the need to respond to you on the record. They said the government doesn't believe that it's appropriate to just disregard the number of images, that the number of images can be appropriate, and indeed in this case, the defendant has amassed an extremely large collection of child pornography. But you disregarded that. You also told the defendant, you said this seems to be a case where you were fascinated by sexual images involving what were essentially your peers. And then you went on to say the defendant was merely trying to satisfy his curiosity. Curiosity is your word. One more thing on this, same idea. You said you were viewing, this is you to the defendant, you were viewing sex acts between children who were not much younger than you, and this whole discussion is about why you're only giving him 3 months. Judge, he was 18. These kids are 8. I don't see in what sense they're peers. That's somehow a reason to only give him 3 months. Help me understand this.
Senator, I don't have the record of that entire case in front of me. This particular defendant had just graduated from high school. And some of, perhaps not all when you were looking at the records, but some of the materials that he was looking at were older teenagers, were older victims. And the point, Senator, is that you said before the probation office is making recommendations and they do so on a case-by-case basis. That is what Congress requires. That this is not done at the level of.
But you had discretion, Judge. You admit that, right? I just want to be.
Senator, sentencing is a discretionary act of a judge.
Okay, so do you get what she's saying? Basically, the senator asked her, the victims are the only 8 years from 8 years old to 12 years old, but her explanation for the 3-month sentencing, one of them is because she said the 18-year-old defendant, her pictures in his images are the people who are his peers. Mm-hmm. Just let alone, even his peers, that's still a crime, right? But what Senator Hawley was pointing out, how do you think the 8-year-old or 12-year-old can be called a peer of an 18-year-old defendant. So, but you see how she answered? She's avoiding that. She was saying, oh, some of the pictures he has are older.
Yeah.
So how do you, feel about his answer?
Just evading the answer.
Yeah, then Senator Hawley continued to read Jackson's explanation at the time of sentencing Hawkins, and she apologized to the defendant. And let's see how Jackson responded to this question.
Then you apologize to him. And I just have to tell you, I can't quite figure this out. You said to him, this is a truly difficult situation. I appreciate that your family's in the audience. I feel so sorry for them, and for you, and for the anguish this has caused all of you. I feel terrible about the collateral consequences of this conviction. And then you go on and say, sex offenders are truly shunned in our society. Help me understand. I mean, is he a victim? Is that your view here? Is that why you said this? Is that what you meant by it?
Senator, I again don't have the entire record. I remember in that particular case, I considered it to be unusual that here we had a very young man, just graduated from high school. He presented all of his diplomas and certificates and the things that he had done and argued, consistent with what I was seeing in the record, that this particular defendant had gotten into this in a way that was, I thought, inconsistent with some of the other cases that I had seen.
Okay. So she, first of all,
I got that. So
you got that?
Just doesn't matter.
Well, she emphasized that he's a high school graduate.
Yeah.
Such a young person. She never mentioned the victims. In the photos in the videos are even much younger kids, and so that's her explanation. It's actually long, much longer. I cut out some of the videos when I show you the segments, so I wanted to make that note. But you got the idea. And then we can discuss that right after I share with you more of what happened in the hearing. So let's see some exchange between Senator Ted Cruz and her. Okay, so that's part of it is regarding the CRT, the critical race theory. And actually, Senator Cruz started with, I think he's a very good, he could be a very good judge, Senator.
You mean Justice?
Cruz. Justice,
You mentioned
yes.
that it's better for Cruz to sit on the bench of the Supreme Court.
Well, that's my personal opinion.
Let's see whether that could happen down the road.
He's very methodic, has a line of like questioning people.
Okay. Logical and
yeah.
yeah.
And he will pave the road and to what he wanted to really get out from the other party. So first of all, he initially just started with a conversation with the Judge Jackson about how they were actually just 1 year apart. They were worked together before, and how they agree upon the Dr. Martin Luther King's My Dream, and then he mentioned asked her about whether you agree with Dr. Martin Luther King's speech about my dream. I hope one day the 4 young kids of mine won't be judged by their own skin color, but judged by their content of character. And she said, oh, yes, I totally agree. Then, Ted Cruz went on to point it out, he found out that one of the speeches that Judge Jackson made recently, which is in January 2020, she spoke at University of Michigan School of Law on the Martin Luther King's Day celebration. And, he pointed out some things she said at that time really boggles his mind. And let's see how Jackson responded.
And in particular in that speech, you referenced the work of, quote, acclaimed investigative journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones and her, and again, this is a quote from the speech, provocative thesis that America was born in, provocative thesis that the America that was born in 1776 was not the perfect union that it purported to be. And indeed, Ms. Hannah-Jones, in her 1619 projects, describes the central thesis of the 1619 Project, which the New York Times laid out as a revisionist look of history, revising American history. And Ms. Hannah-Jones described her central thesis as, quote, one of the primary reasons the colonists decided to declare independence was because they wanted to protect the institution of slavery.
When I gave that speech at the University of Michigan, I was asked to speak on Martin Luther King Day. And I gave a speech about Black women in the civil rights movement. Most of the speech, if not all of the speech, was focused on African American women, their contributions to the civil rights movement, unsung contributions in many cases, and then some of the more recent African American women who have made claims, who have done things in our society. One slide was of Ms. A journalist, as you say, who made that statement, and I called it provocative. It is not something that I've studied. It doesn't come up in my work. I was mentioning it because it was, at least at that time, something that was talked about and well known to the students that I was speaking to at the law school.
Okay, so basically, she didn't respond to Ted Cruz's question about why she, the way she described the 1619 project, its author, right, Nicole Hannah-Jones. And you see in her answer, she didn't even hesitate to say her name. But in her speech, she described Nicole Hannah-Jones as an acclaimed journalist, right? So, and then Ted Cruz asked her about how do you think of critical race theory? Jackson answered, as I know, critical race theory is an academic theory, and it's about how race is interacted with many of the institutions. But then she immediately saying, I have never studied critical race theory or relied on it in my work as judge, and will not rely on it if I am appointed to the Supreme Court justice. And then Ted Cruz pointed out her another speech in 2015 at University of Chicago. She actually talked about the work as a judge is related to critical race theory. Let's take a look. See, that's an exact quote from her speech at that time, saying that sentencing is just interesting because it melds together myriad types of law, criminal law, constitutional law, and critical race theory. So how to explain that, right? She just claimed that CRT never is in her work. So then she had a long answer, just basically arguing, she said that I was at that time just referring to the sentencing policy. So it's to a lot of people, I don't think, that really answers question. She's just trying to, kind of explain in another way, right? So it doesn't really address the question. Then Jackson also in the hearing, multiple times she testified she doesn't know whether CRT is taught in K-12. So Senator Cruz again, get a confirmation from her. She said, "Oh no, I don't know." So then Senator Cruz said, "You sit on a private school's board of trustee, which is a school called the Georgetown Day School," and she publicly said, as a board of trustee, something related to the critical race theory. and see how she responded to Cruz.
In regard to the Georgetown Day School, you've publicly said, quote, "Since becoming a member of the GDS community 7 years ago, Patrick and I have witnessed the transformative power of a rigorous progressive education that is dedicated to fostering critical thinking, interdependence, and social justice." When you refer to social justice and the school's mission on social justice, what did you mean by that?
Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to address this issue. Georgetown Day School has a special history that I think is important to understand.
Okay, so basically, again,
She didn't answer the
she
question.
didn't answer the question, and she started with, "Thank you, Senator, for allowing me to address this issue." Whenever I noticed that whenever it could be a, difficult question for her to answer, she will start with this, and basically, because she said, "Oh, I didn't know that CRT was taught in K-12," but then immediately, Cruz provided some evidence. You talked about it, right? But she evaded to answer this question. And then Senator Cruz showed quite a few books that this Georgetown Day School is using. The books they are using either as assigned or recommended, and some of them are the books by Ibram Kendi. Okay, so for little kids, ranging from 4 to 8 years old. Let's take a look.
They include Critical Race Theory and Introduction. They include The End of Policing and an Advocacy for Abolishing Police. They include How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. They include literally stacks and stacks of books, and I'll tell you two of the ones that were most stunning. They include a book called Anti-Racist Baby.
Okay, so in those books, some Senator Cruz just gave example, like it says something like, "Can we send white people back to Europe?" And say, "Clearly we see the skin color in our society," things like that. And Senator Cruz said, "See, those words or ideas in the books just contradictory to Dr. Martin Luther King's idea," and he asked Jackson how you view it. So let's see how she responded.
Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
Senator, I do not believe that any child should be made to feel as though they are racist or though they are not valued or though they are less than, that they're victims, that they're oppressors. I don't believe in any of that. But what I will say is that when you asked me whether or not this was taught in schools, critical race theory, my understanding is that critical race theory as an academic theory is taught in law schools, and to the extent that you were asking the question, I understood you to be addressing public schools. Georgetown Day School, just like the religious school that Justice Barrett was on the board of, is a private school.
Okay.
Do you see the pattern?
Mm-hmm.
She's, she was pausing a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then she found a way to answer it and saying that, you are talking about a public school,
Mm-hmm.
but the private school I sit on the board of trustees is a private school.
Mm-hmm.
She just evaded the question.
Yeah, she just avoided. Well, the question was asked. Those are good questions, and the question was very clear.
Yeah.
Just how to explain this thing, and she she never go there.
Right, she will just go around and okay. Then Senator Cruz asked, "So are you comfortable about teaching these type of ideas to a 4-year-old or an 80-year-old?" And how she responded, she's that I have not reviewed any of these books and ideas. Even though she talked about the critical race theory, talked about social justice, right? And then she said that they don't come up with my work as a judge. That she repeated that a lot when she was answering those questions. We heard that, right? So, and then Senator Cruz pointed out that, okay, let's talk about your work again, right? So he referred to Judge Jackson's work back when she was in Harvard Law School. She had a review paper. It's about at that time it's a new law of a sex offender registration law. Okay, so she had an analysis and argument about whether it's a prevention law or a punitive law, because if it's a prevention law, it's constitutional. If it's a punitive law, then it's unconstitutional. So basically, what Senator Cruz, presented from her paper is like she's saying that because this sex offender registration law requires the sex offenders to register, okay, and also to have community notification, and she said those are punitive. Basically, then the conclusion is they are unconstitutional, right? And also including like the DNA banks for the sex offenders, things like that. So basically, her views on that paper is this type of sex offender registration law is unconstitutional. But she said, she just tried to just explain this question, saying, I'm not saying that, okay? So it's just up to people to judge whether they want to believe her or not. Finally, another instance is Senator Marsha Blackburn asked her, it happened yesterday, to define the word woman. And she said, can you define the word woman? And what Jackson replied is, I can't. Then Senator Blackburn followed up and saying, why you cannot? And she said, it's not in this context. I'm not a biologist. So that's her answer, why she cannot define the word woman. All right.
Okay. So what do you think? We're sending a person to be the Supreme Court justice. Chances are she's going to rule on like a Roe v. Wade case, which has to do with the women, whether women can have the abortion right, and she doesn't know how to define the women.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic, right? She was nominated because she's black, because she's a woman, but she cannot define what's a woman. Does she know she's a woman or not? Right?
Okay, so here, let me see. So Luis Fernandez, you wrote this. It's funny how you don't see any of this on the mainstream media shippo clips they put out. Yeah, that's exactly the case. Kathy went through this for several hours to give you the fact that you are entitled to see. Because, we're all busy. We're busy with our own life, right? You're busy with your small business, with your job, creating things, feed the family, and provide the bread on the table, on the dinner table. And we don't have time to work through those whole day hearing. That's why we need media. And what about those mainstream media? What do they put out? I was just reading, actually, the CNN and the other ones, Politico. I think it's just all praise. And this lady was fantastic. Okay,
I didn't have time to read those mainstream media or watch them. I just, watched the C-SPAN, just what happened in the room,
yeah, thankfully C-SPAN still have the raw footage, right, for us to look into it. And then now you have Kathy's report to you. And then, only one has to be right. And who do you trust? And we, what do we got is that we labor through, look into the original footage, and give you what happened during that hearing, not as, summarized by, the mainstream media. Yeah, that's the situation, and the Kobe, Kobe or Kobe, Mega. You said, what is she talking about? I think your feeling is what every viewer here has to share. So
Because
what is she talking about?
yeah, you
Can she
have to
just-
excuse me. I cannot just put on her lengthy answers, right, in our show. If you're interested, you can really go back and watch a C-SPAN. But basically, I had the same feeling. Like sometimes I had to go back and say, what she's talking about, how exactly she's answering this question. Those are straightforward questions. So I also think it's interesting to see her body language if you have time to if you notice. It's very interesting to watch the body language. I'm not an expert of body language, but I think it's just when you see her body language, it's just I think people really deserve to know how she views how in terms of a professional judge, right, as a justice, how she view a lot of things, but a lot of times she just say I don't know, okay, and I think you can judge by that why she, like even things she talked about, she said I don't know, and then also I think people deserve justice who is honest, have basic principles as a person, right? Those are all you have to judge from the, you could judge a lot from this hearing. But if the mainstream media are not talking about it, it's really rely upon yourself to watch it, spend hours, or you can watch us and at least give you some of the perspectives, the facts and the perspectives. So maybe I think next we could discuss like why. Because like one of our viewers, I saw that she thinks she's too left to be in such position. So why, like for example, the sentencing? Why do you think the ultra left oftentimes
would be
so soft on crime?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and it's a question that's really worth thinking about, and worth how to say, and remember the root cause, because the root cause is a little distance from the surface. Okay, and this is my point of view, and based upon my research, and including that. Curtis Bowers' research. Okay, that this is a gentleman I respect a lot, and in the first hand, he got to know to the core of the American communist and how they plan all this. We got America, right? We got America. America is a country of law and order. America is a country of that have strong faith. America is a country that has a well-working free market economy. Okay, those are the structure. Those are the underpinning, or those are the structure of this great country. When all this is working well, people have no reason to look for anything else. Okay, so this is what defined as our society. Well, the communists recognized that. They found Americans were so well structured, and the everybody, get to where he or she wants to get to, and in a structured way. Okay, not completely just so-called freedom can do anything. It's liberty, right? It's a freedom within good restraint. So it's a well-functioned country. So how do they win over this country? How do they take over this country? They cannot. Through voting, people won't vote them in. So their way is to let's deconstruct the country. For all those pillars, for all those underpinnings, for all those order and make this society work and prosper, let's destroy them one by one.
Yeah, make the society chaos, then they can grab the power.
Yeah, when they make the society chaos, when people got confused, they don't have anything firm and clear to hold on, then their voice will rise up, especially during the crisis. Their promise will stand out, and will disillusion will fool people.
Yeah, because at the time of chaos and feeling unsafe, then people will turn, a lot of times people will turn to government.
Yeah.
And that's how, the government can be bigger and, larger, right? So that's what they want. And that's exactly how happened in China, in Cuba, although, at that time, the radical left or communism are a very small number. But when they, make the society chaotic, and then their voice become even much larger. And for people who feel unsafe, they said, oh, then people tend to be easier to believe what those radical left or communists say.
Yes.
The promise.
Yeah, think about the women thing, right? It's such ridiculous. Well, you got this Leah Thomas, right? This big guy. This is 6 feet 1 inch, and how to say 193 pound. This is a heavyweight person competing with a short girl. Okay, she's only like 5'8". She's tall, but still much shorter compared to this person. And then they compete in the sports. The idea is to destroy. Okay, it's really just destroy the current order as we know it, either family or women's sports, or like a police, right? Just defund the police or wipe out the police so that we don't have the security guarantee. And in the name of leniency, in the name of the sympathy, in the name of some good value, push that to the extreme, then destroy the current order of the society as we know it. So they create chaos. During chaos, then it's easy for their voice to be amplified, and they will come as the savior. We're gonna bring order. We're gonna bring security to you. And then in that kind of chaos, it's the only chance they're able to grab power. This same thing happened in China. Back then, China was also an ordered society, okay? And the farmers and the landlord, they have a good harmonious relationship. The farmers has the land. I'm sorry, the landlord has the land. And the peasant, they don't have the land. Okay, they just lease the land so that they can produce. And then, just give the landlord some grain, and they can keep the rest and feed the family. This has been happening for thousands of years. And then the Chinese Communist Party came in and saying that no, they exploited you, and that you are arch enemies.
You are oppressed.
Yeah, you are oppressed.
Yeah, Chinese Communist Party came in and instigate this type of hatred against the landlord by the peasants and the farmers. So then people it's very easy for people have the greediness or just feel unbalanced and saying, oh, you can give us more land, right? Okay, so we will just fight against the landlord with you. So that's how the Chinese Communist government get the peasants to be on their side. In China, it's like at that time like 80% of the population are peasants. So that's how. But once the Chinese government got the power, what they do? They said, oh, they promised to give the lands to the peasants before, right? But then once they got power, too late, and then said, oh, we will form a communal, right? 人民公社. And then, everybody will just come together, farm together, eat together.
Yeah.
So they failed to fulfill their promise. And then later, at a later stage, elite of the Chinese Communist Party members, they grabbed the lands by themselves. So that's how they, fool people, deceive people, grab the power, and also grabbed the properties.
Yeah. So in this country, I think, the way to safeguard our freedom is to safeguard what we have. Okay, the social structure, the concept, family is a family, faith is a faith, man is a man, woman is a woman. Okay, we should speak out against all those transgender and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and also where I wanted to kind of address, because they question her a lot on her sentencing trend of the child pornography criminals, right? So why the leftists, the extreme leftists, really kind of also pretty much on the what do we call, just soft on those child pornography, right? So that reminds me of the 45 Goals of Communism, written by Cleon Skousen. We've talked about it before. And among these 45 goals of communism, a lot of people, if you read it, you would be surprised that many of them have been accomplished in the United States, okay? So a couple of them, the 25th of the goal is a breakdown cultural standard of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV.
Yeah, they want to create a world where pornography, it's no big deal. It's just somebody's hobby.
Or curiosity, right? That's what she said. You are just fulfilling your curiosity. And the other thing about the critical race theory. So in the 45 goals of communism, the 30th of it is saying discredit American founding fathers, present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. So that comes in how the 1619 project, right? So, on the surface, people just feel it's like kind of strange, but behind it, those are among the communists' goals to take America and the free world.
Yeah, so this is just the same game, just applied in different places and different time. But if we recognize them, then they will have a short life. Okay, they will be exposed. If everybody recognizes them, they won't exist. So the truth is still the best weapon to defeat such a scheme. Okay, so today that's what we want to bring to you.
Yeah. So. Unfortunately, a lot of people just think she will be confirmed, but I think people deserve to know, who is.
Yeah, who they confirm.
Who they're confirming.
At least, to say the least, who they confirm, and we need to know what is right, what is wrong, and we need to treasure what do we have. Okay, this is, well, in my understanding, being a late coming American, coming here, the conservatism is conserve the order, the faith, and the family, and in the very fabric of our great country and our great society. And we should do everything to safeguard them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we saw like out on a limb saying she's a no-go for me. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe shall we get a vote here? Voting here. Do you think?
I think you know the answer. You know the result. Okay, I think that's all for today.
Yeah. And, one thing I would like to inform: if you are in Wisconsin or you are interested in the election integrity, actually tomorrow there will be an important hearing in Wisconsin Assembly Committee. In the Wisconsin state government. So the Wisconsin Assembly Committee on Campaigns and Elections will have an informational hearing at 10 a.m. Central Time. So if you are interested, how can you watch the live feed of the hearing? So it's wiseye.org, WISEYE.org. I think it's a nonprofit organization. They will be live streaming the hearing. So if you are interested in what's the development over there, I think I was told the evidence are quite solid. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Jeff, you wrote that hearing you guys laugh is funny. Our media is worse than China now. I understand what you mean, but our media,
but still,
it's not worse than China.
Yeah, we still have to say that.
Yeah, if it's worse than China, Kathy and Wei will be in jail right now after the first 10 minutes. This is what China is like.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just that's why we are here. We need to prevent the U.S. sliding into the situation of China.
Yeah, of course we understand how you feel because for our fellow Americans here, you're never experiencing our media can be so just dishonest, right? Just to put it in a simple word. But still, because of United States, still it's America. Still there are opportunities for alternative media or independent media like us So sometimes, the mainstream media, and they still have to report something true, because otherwise they will just totally lose the
they'll corrupt.
audience.
The market will just destroy them. So anyway,
And talking about just last sentence I want to mention, because some of you mentioned that, like, for example, the Hunter Biden's laptop, right? So we reported on that when it first came out. But I think at that time we are not studying this English show yet. But see, after such a long time, New York Times started to report on it. Of course, they may have their own purpose, but I think in such a free country, after all, the truth will come out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing that we should keep optimistic and also hopeful, and also try to keep it, right? Keep the freedom. That's why we are doing this.
Yep.
So don't lose the hope.
This is a sign of hope. We never lose the hope. We never lose hope. So, Hollis, to end, just one short joke. Actually, I told this before.
You have to thank all our audience. You have to thank Hollis, keeping way on the toe of telling jokes.
Because Jeff, you talk about that China, right? So I just want to give you a comparison so that you can see this more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's competition among between the police of three countries, America and Taiwan and China, in terms of who is more effective and efficient in catching a running away rabbit. All right.
Okay.
So the rabbit was running away and then ran into the forest, and so who can catch the rabbit in the most effective way? So the American police first came. They bring so many scientists, right, biologists and how to say those scent expert. They got all kinds of analysis, sensors and the fabric, the fiber, and so through the scientific way, they try to trace and identify the exact trace that rabbit went through, and so they can pin down the rabbit. But the rabbit was too cunning. Okay, it ran so many circles, then they failed. Finally, that led to nothing. Okay, well, they were very disappointed and very upset, and then
just hopeless.
Yeah, hopeless. They scored 0. So now the Taiwan police came. Taiwan police was just very, very careful. Okay, when they search on the grass, they're afraid of step on a flower or just anything that people like. The Taiwan police was extremely polite and even some timid. Okay. So with their searching, and there are still legislators around the grass and saying that you are moving too fast, you are stepping on too many grasses, and
you should the environmental protection,
right,
right,
and so on and so forth. Okay, needless to say, with this over 100 Taiwan police, they couldn't catch the rabbit.
Okay.
So now they come to China. They only sent, American basically sent a troop of scientists and biologists and the police and so on and so forth. So Americans sent 300 people, they couldn't catch the rabbit. Taiwan sent 100 people, they couldn't catch the rabbit. So in the China team, only four people.
4?
Yeah.
Wow.
So every country is giving only 1 hour to do that, right? So the 4 people just came over, drag over a table, and start to play mahjong. What's mahjong? This is a China game.
Yeah.
And then they spends 15 minutes playing the mahjong. And the judge was saying that you're using up your time. Are you going to catch the rabbit? So really? Of course. Okay. Well, let's catch the rabbit. So just one person, stood up and walked into the forest. And you just heard some beating, and bang, 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 bang.
What happened?
What happened? So this police came out and dragging a bear.
A bear?
A bear out of the forest.
Wow.
And so the judge was saying that, so what does that mean? Where's the rabbit?
Yeah, we're trying to catch the rabbit.
And the police just pointed at the bears, saying that, hear him out. The bear was holding his nose and then crying out, stop beating, I admit, I'm the rabbit. Okay.
Do you get it? Yeah, that's
Hopefully
how things goes under Chinese communist regime.
Yeah. So
So easy for them.
That's first. Let's stop China. Let's stop U.S. sliding into that kind of country, right? and second, let's bring America back. Okay. Every day at a time. One piece of news at a time. And,
one show at a time.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us.
Being with us. And So take care.
Take care.
We'll see you on Friday.
Yes.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye bye.